We call that suicide shit. Don't be knowing that lid ain't coming off without that dome gonna come off with it.
I want this to be gentle.
Whether you like it or not, the MCU has a habit of taking fan-favorite characters and either butchering them or tossing them aside like they don't matter, and they never really get the moment they deserve. I mean, just look at what they did to the king of the Inhumans in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, or Kang the Conqueror. So today, we are diving into the 10 underrated Marvel characters who truly deserve their time to shine in the MCU. Number 10. Aries. Aries is a character who deserves way more love in the MCU. He's the Olympian god of war, and like most gods in the Marvel universe, he's anything but predictable. We've seen Asgardians like Thor and even Olympians like Hercules get their spotlight, but Aries has mostly stayed in the background. Now that's surprising, considering how wild his comic book journey has been. Originally, Aries tried to leave behind his war-fueled past and live like a normal guy. But peace and quiet don't last long in Marvel stories, and soon enough, the Avengers pulled him back into battle. While he did fight alongside them, his thirst for combat often made him a bit intense. So when Norman Osborn formed the Dark Avengers and promised Aries more chaos and action, he jumped at the chance. But even with that darker edge, Aries had a line. When he realized Osborn was just using him, it sparked his heroic instincts again. That move unfortunately led to his death at the hands of the Sentry. Still, Marvel brought him back later, because you can't keep a god down forever, and he's tangled with folks like the Punisher since. His mix of brute strength, battle smarts, and shifting alliances make him a prime candidate for the MCU, especially as we move into more morally complex territory. Number 9. Gambit. Gambit, or Remy LeBeau, is the kind of character that thrives in morally gray spaces. He's smooth, clever, and totally unpredictable, which is probably why fans love him so much. But beneath all that charm is a pretty complicated past. Born into the New Orleans Thieves Guild, Gambit grew up surrounded by crime and trickery. That upbringing shaped him into a world-class thief, and he didn't always stick to the heroic path. At one point, he even worked for Mr. Sinister and helped the Marauders carry out the tragic Morlock massacre, something that haunted him long after he joined the X-Men. But despite his past, Gambit's loyalty to his teammates and willingness to take risks for the greater good helped him earn his place among the X-Men. On screen, we've seen a glimpse of him in X-Men Origins Wolverine, where Taylor Kitsch took on the role. Then there was the long-rumored solo film with Channing Tatum, which unfortunately got stuck in development limbo. But now that Tatum has finally stepped into the role in Deadpool and Wolverine and is confirmed for Avengers Doomsday, it feels like Gambit's time has finally come. His slick combat style, romantic tension with Rogue, and inner struggles could bring a lot of nuance to the MCU, and he'd be right at home in the kind of messier, post-multiverse saga world Marvel seems to be building. Number 8. Emma Frost. Emma Frost is one of Marvel's most layered and enigmatic mutants, and if there's any character overdue for a serious MCU spotlight, it's her. She first showed up in the pages of Uncanny X-Men number 129 back in 1980, created by Chris Claremont and John Byrne. At the time, she was a full-on villain, the powerful and cold White Queen of the Hellfire Club. She ran her own rival mutant school, the Massachusetts Academy, and didn't hesitate to use mind control or lethal force when necessary. She was manipulative, calculating, and dangerously intelligent, not someone you'd ever expect to root for. But what made Emma fascinating even then was her genuine concern for her students. Despite all her ruthless behavior, she truly believed in educating and protecting young mutants. That protective instinct ended up being a major part of her arc. After suffering personal tragedies like the destruction of her school and the loss of her students in Generation X, she slowly began shifting away from villainy. When she joined the X-Men in the early 2000s, particularly during Grant Morrison's New X-Men run, she transformed into one of the team's most important and complex leaders. Her relationship with Cyclops was a turning point, showing new sides of both characters and sparking endless debates among fans. Together, they led the X-Men through some of their darkest chapters, including the mutant decimation after House of M and the rise of Utopia. Emma's diamond form, which grants her physical invulnerability, also revealed during this time a secondary mutation that mirrored how emotionally guarded she'd become. During the Krakoa era, Emma took on a major role in mutant diplomacy and politics, co-leading the Hellfire Trading Company and ensuring mutant kind had economic power in a world that often feared them. Although she still operates in morally gray areas, blackmailing, manipulating, and strategizing when necessary, she's proven again and again that she'll go to any length to protect mutant lives. In terms of live action, she's had a couple of attempts, once in X-Men First Class, played by January Jones, and earlier in Wolverine and the X-Men as a major animated figure. But none of those versions have fully captured her depth or evolution. The MCU has a real opportunity to reintroduce Emma Frost in a way that does justice to her arc, maybe starting as a powerful outsider, then gradually stepping up as a fierce protector of mutant kind. Her inclusion could add layers of political maneuvering, ethical tension, and power dynamics that are rarely explored with other heroes. Whether it's in a mutants-focused series, a Hellfire Club drama, or even a Krakoa-based storyline, Emma Frost deserves a moment to shine not just as a hero or a villain, but as the complex powerhouse she's always been. Number 7. Juggernaut. Juggernaut, also known as Cain Parker, has been one of the most iconic powerhouses in Marvel Comics for decades, and there's a lot more to him than just smashing walls. Introduced in X-Men number 12 in 1965 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, Cain is the stepbrother of Professor Charles Xavier. But unlike Xavier, Cain never fit into the world of intellect and idealism. Their strained relationship laid the groundwork for a lifetime of resentment, which only deepened after Cain stumbled upon the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak while serving in the Korean War. That gem transformed him into the Juggernaut, a being fueled by mystical energies, making him virtually unstoppable once in motion. Unlike mutants, Juggernaut's powers are magical in origin, which sets him apart in a very unique way within the Marvel Universe. At first, he was a relentless villain, repeatedly clashing with the X-Men and other heroes, but over time, his character evolved. Writers like Chris Claremont and Chuck Austin began adding real depth to him, especially through his close bond with Black Tom Cassidy. Their friendship and occasional villainous partnership brought out Juggernaut's more human side, showing that beneath all the armor and fury was a man desperate to be accepted. His brief stints with the X-Men, such as during the Uncanny X-Men and New Excalibur runs, proved he could be more than just a wrecking ball. One of the most emotional turns came during X-Men The Last Stand, when he actually fought to protect innocents rather than just cause chaos. In the X-Men Legacy comics, Cain even tried to abandon the Juggernaut mantle, showing just how badly he wanted to escape Cyttorak's influence and make his own path. And in the 2020 Juggernaut solo series by Fabian Nicienza, we saw him struggling with being powerless after losing the gem, only to reclaim a version of it and attempt to use that power responsibly, including mentoring a young mutant named D-Cell. On screen, fans have seen a few versions of Juggernaut. Vinnie Jones brought a more over-the-top version to life in X-Men The Last Stand, while Deadpool 2 introduced a far more comic-accurate CGI version, complete with immense size, magical strength, and that booming voice. That portrayal was brought back again in Deadpool and Wolverine, teasing the character's lasting appeal and potential for more. Number 6. John Greycrow. John Greycrow is one of those characters who has quietly undergone a major transformation. Originally introduced as a cold-blooded killer in X-Men comics, he served as a loyal assassin for Mr. Sinister's Marauders. One of his darkest moments came during the Mutant Massacre, where he helped wipe out the Morlocks, a brutal act that left a stain on his legacy. But everything changed after Krakoa offered amnesty to all mutants. Greycrow joined the X-Men-affiliated Hellions team, and that's when readers started to see a different side of him. He wasn't just a killer anymore, he was someone trying to make up for the things he'd done. His relationship with Psylocke, who had her own dark past, became a key part of his redemption arc. Together, they worked through their pain and tried to build something real. Still, Greycrow isn't perfect. He's been known to rob banks on the side just to keep things moving. but it's that blend of redemption and relapse that makes him such a fascinating anti-hero. He's not just good or bad, he's both, and that duality could bring a lot of depth to the MCU. If Marvel wants to keep exploring complex character dynamics, Grey Crow would be a strong addition to the mix. Number 5. Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger are two characters who have quietly made their debut on screen, but still haven't had the spotlight they truly deserve in the larger MCU. The Freeform series, starring Olivia Holt as Tandy Bowen and Aubrey Joseph as Tyrone Johnson, introduced them to audiences in a grounded and emotional way. It explored themes like trauma, addiction, and social inequality, things most superhero stories shy away from. Even though the show was technically set in the MCU, it was more of a side story. And while the series ended in 2019 after 2 seasons, there's still so much potential left in these two. In the comics, Cloak and Dagger debuted in Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man number 64, created by Bill Mantlo and Ed Hannigan. Their powers are rooted in a drug experiment gone wrong. Tyrone can access the Dark Force dimension, while Tandy generates light daggers. That contrast between light and darkness makes for incredible visual storytelling, and the way their abilities reflect their personal struggles just adds more emotional weight. They fought alongside the X-Men, the Runaways, and even Spider-Man. So it's about time the MCU brings them back in a bigger way. Whether it's a Disney Plus series reboot with a more mature edge, or a cameo in something like Daredevil Born Again, their presence would fit naturally into the grittier, street-level corner the MCU is exploring. A proper return, one that embraces their comic book origins and builds on their bond, could really elevate these characters. Number 4. Cain Parker. Cain Parker isn't your typical wall crawler. As one of the earliest failed clones of Peter Parker, he began his comic journey as a villain, a corrupted and angry version of Spider-Man who never quite fit in. Created by Terry Kavanagh and Stephen Butler, Cain made his debut in Web of Spider-Man number 119 during the Clone Saga. His cellular degeneration, anger issues, and unpredictable morality made him a constant thorn in Peter's side, but he was also a deeply tragic figure. Eventually, Cain got a second chance. After being cured of his condition, he took on the Scarlet Spider mantle in Scarlet Spider Volume 2 and tried to forge his own heroic path in Houston. But even then, he didn't play by Peter's rules. He was brutal, lethal when he had to be, and he even paralyzed Cletus Cassidy, Carnage, at one point. Cain was never aiming to be a perfect hero, but his raw instincts and desire for redemption gave him real depth. In a live-action setting, Cain could bring a much-needed edge to the Spider-Verse. While fans love Peter and are warming up to Miles, Cain could offer something darker, an anti-hero who struggles with identity, anger, and guilt. Plus, with a multiverse wide open, there's no better time to introduce a grittier Spider-Man variant who walks a different path. Number 3. Elektra. Elektra is one of those characters who always dances along the edge between villain and hero. Created by Frank Miller in Daredevil number 168, she started as an assassin, trained by the Hand, and one of Daredevil's most complicated love interests. Over the years, Elektra has killed, betrayed, and gone rogue, but she's also saved lives, led heroic missions, and even donned the Daredevil suit herself in more recent storylines like Woman Without Fear. She's been portrayed by Jennifer Garner in the early 2000s movies and by Elodie Yung in Netflix's Daredevil series, but she's never really had the chance to headline her own MCU project. A solo Disney Plus series or special could finally dive into her backstory, her internal war between her assassin training and her desire for redemption, and the legacy of Daredevil itself. Elektra's story has layers: loss, manipulation, ambition, and ultimately self-forgiveness. And now that the MCU is leaning into more character-driven stories, she's primed for a proper return. Whether it's a brutal ninja saga or a psychological drama about confronting your past, Elektra could easily become one of the MCU's most compelling anti-heroes. Number 2. Runaways. The Runaways comics were a fresh, bold take on teenage superheroes. Created by Brian K. Vaughan and Adrian Alfona, the team debuted in 2003 and immediately stood out. These weren't sidekicks or junior heroes, they were kids who found out their parents were supervillains and decided to make things right. From Nico Minoru's Magik to Carolina Dean's alien powers, Chase Stein's tech gadgets, and Molly Hayes' mutant strength, every member brought something unique to the table. That said, back in 2003, Brian K. Vaughan pitched Runaways as part of Marvel's Tsunami imprint, a line aimed at attracting younger and manga-loving readers. Marvel editors were instantly on board, and the concept was so fresh that Wizard magazine called it one of the best original Marvel ideas in decades. Even though the Tsunami imprint didn't quite work out and Runaways ended at issue number 18, the Digest collection sold well. That gave Vaughan a second shot to pitch it, and this time, it stuck. Originally, Vaughan only planned to write 6 issues, but because the series kept gaining popularity and new creative sparks, it became a monthly series. By 2007, Vaughan stepped away, wanting to leave while it was strong. He personally picked longtime fan Joss Whedon to take over. Whedon wasn't sure at first, but he eventually signed on and wrapped up Volume 2. In 2008, Terry Moore and artist Humberto Ramos took the reins for Volume 3. Then came Catherine Immonen and Sarah Pichelli, starting with a wild prom-to-death arc. The ending left fans hanging with a major cliffhanger, which was later resolved in other titles like Daken Dark Wolverine and Avengers Academy. The Runaways continued showing up in titles like Avengers AI, Avengers Arena, and A-Force. Number 1. Inhumans. The Inhumans have had a rocky history on screen, but they're still a core part of Marvel's mythos. Originally created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee in Fantastic Four number 45, the Inhumans are a race of superpowered beings whose abilities are triggered by the Terrigen Mist. Their royal family, Black Bolt, Medusa, Karnak, Gorgon, Crystal, and others, rule from the city of Atalan and often deal with the challenge of balancing tradition with the modern world. The 2017 TV series didn't do them justice. It rushed their development, downplayed their powers, and lacked the grandeur that a story about alien royalty deserves. Black Bolt's brief return in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness reminded fans of how visually striking and powerful these characters can be. What they really need is a cinematic retake, maybe a Game of Thrones-style Disney Plus series, or a grand space opera film that reintroduces the Inhuman royal family with the depth and drama they deserve. Their stories include political intrigue, family betrayal, cosmic threats, and personal sacrifices. It's fertile ground for epic storytelling, and with Marvel now embracing the cosmic and multiverse elements, there's no better time to bring the Inhumans back into the fold. With these characters, the MCU has the chance to expand into even more nuanced, morally complicated stories, something fans are clearly craving. Whether they've battled gods, haunted their own pasts, or tried to break free from villainy, these heroes and anti-heroes are more than ready for their moment in the spotlight. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Your suggestions for future videos are always welcome in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay in the loop. And if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments.